Welcome to the Global Gaming Business Podcast. Today's podcast is sponsored by Pavilion Payments, which empowers gaming institutions to create an enhanced patron experience with a complete suite of integrated payment solutions that enable safe, secure, and trusted cash access at the cage, on the casino floor, or online. Learn more at pavilionpayments.com. I'm Roger Gros, the publisher of GGB, and this week we sit down with Scott Fisher and Suzanne Leckert, partners in the Convergence Strategy Group, about how their company has become an important consulting organization for jurisdictions and companies getting involved in gaming. When two of the most respected consultants to the gaming industry decided to partner, the Convergence Strategy Group immediately became a major player, even though Scott Fisher and Suzanne Leckert described their effort as a boutique group. Probably their most successful contribution was to the Danville project, an effort to bring gaming to that Southern Virginia town that was down on its luck. They helped the city through the process, explaining how to get the most for their community. After a bidding process, Caesars Entertainment was chosen as the developer, and today the temporary casino is off and running. They've worked with clients in the U.S., Europe, and Asia, and have contacts around the world. They spoke with me at the Indian Gaming Tradeshow in Anaheim in April. Guys, thanks for joining me. It's great to see you, and congratulations on the work you've done over the past few years. You started your own company, and you've done a great job in your little boutique consulting company.
Well, thank you, Roger, and thanks for having us
Sure,
this morning.
absolutely.
It's been a fun ride. Scott and I worked together many years ago at a different firm and went our own separate ways. Then came back together and formed Convergence Strategy Group. We just 6 years ago. We just had our 6th anniversary.
Okay, great.
So it's been a fun ride.
And you've had a lot of success during that time. Give me an idea of some of the projects that you've worked on.
Well, I'd say some of our more interesting ones have been for some of the government entities. We worked for the city of Danville, Virginia, a couple of years ago, really helping them throughout their entire casino selection process, through to negotiations for a contract. And in that casino, which was the license awarded to Caesars, is under construction right now, the permanent facility, but they've got a temporary open that's just doing gangbusters business and really contributing to the economy of that city.
Sure.
So that's been, those kind of things are really rewarding.
And then followed that up with working with the city of Richmond on kind of tangential and similar in many ways in terms of helping them through the bidding process and to determine a winner. Unfortunately, never made it through a referendum. We didn't work in the second referendum, or as they were going through the second referendum. But it was another interesting example of working with the city, as well as the city of Waukegan, working with negotiating with Full House. So those types of jobs have been interesting, and I've kept up with a few international projects, working on trying to figure out what's going on in Thailand right now and in UAE, both markets which seem interesting and ready to take off, be the next international destination for mega resorts. So that's what's those types of projects that have kept us busy, and there's other stuff that's still popping around the U.S. I guess what's obviously really interesting is for years we thought, okay, there's no more jurisdictions that are ready to pop out, and now there really is a lot of whispers. Whether it's Texas, we've been kicking tires for the last 3 years. And probably for the next 2 to 4 years, we'll keep doing that. But whether it's Alabama or Georgia, it's interesting that there's still states that suddenly things could emerge in. And obviously New York as well.
Yeah, New York City. Yes.
Let's talk about Danville to start with. I mean, that was a great project. As you said, the temporary casino is really doing terrific numbers. But they really wanted to do it in a step-by-step basis, and they wanted to be able to be really transparent with it. And I think the way you advised them, I think the citizens of Danville understood every step of the way what was happening. Why don't you tell us about how they approached you and or how you approached them, I guess, and what they wanted you to do once you came in.
Sure. So we were approached by the city as things were moving through the legislature. They realized suddenly we don't know what we don't know, and we need some help.
Right.
And so we responded to a request for proposals, and we're fortunate enough to be selected. And when they hired us, we had a more narrow scope of work, but very quickly all parties realized, oh no, they need a whole lot more hand-holding here.
Right.
Because this is the first time that the city has ever done this. It was the first time Virginia had gone through this process. And transparency was very, very important to the city and to our client from start to finish.
Sure.
And I think we ran a really great and fair process. In the gaming industry, there's always whispers of favoritism or backroom deals or whatnot. And we're really proud of the fact that it was a transparent and truly open process there. And the best bidder won.
Yeah. How many bids did you get on that project?
What was that, Scott? Was that 7?
Well, there was one that was tossed out immediately, and I'm trying to think whether there's. I feel like there was 6, but I'm gonna be counting
Okay,
wrong.
it was 6 or 7. I'm
Right,
sorry,
sure.
but I mean, and all really great bids, highly reputable big name gaming companies that were going after it, which for a city like Danville was a little bit overwhelming. As the city manager describes it, it's the mill town without a mill.
Yeah.
I mean, really depressed economy.
Right.
A town that had really fallen on hard times, and this is proving to be transformational for them.
Right.
Yeah. Well, we knew from going into it, looking at the numbers that were possibly going to come out, that it was a city with a $100 million budget, and they were looking at getting $25 million out of this.
Yeah.
They're like, this is going to change our lives.
Yeah.
This is
$25
amazing.
million a year.
Yeah, $25 million a year.
Sure. Right. Yeah. So obviously you have to do a market analysis. Where did you say the players were going to be drawn from?
It was largely North Carolina because they are literally on the border. So that was the biggest challenge, was that we knew that North Carolina could eventually pass gaming, so we had to run multiple analyses, saying, okay, what happens if they do, what happens if they don't. But the Raleigh-Durham market area, which is about an hour and a half away, which is a little scary in that regard, was a major source. But still, Danville has a pretty nice radius in Virginia of some good-sized towns that it wasn't going to be all North Carolina. There was a decent amount that could be Virginia as well. And as you pointed out, they're doing better with the temporary than anyone predicted they could do with a permanent. So it's looking pretty good for them, and making Caesars, I think, pretty happy about the budget that they're planning for the full resort.
Right. So Richmond must have been very frustrating for you because you go through two referendums, and I thought that you had a great process there as well, and the winner of the bidding process was not a major casino. Do you think that was a issue there? I mean, it wasn't one of the big boys.
I think that came down to a lot of local politics and just issues that were outside of the official process. There were prejudices that came to light.
Sure, right.
That was a difficult one. You're right there.
I think you have a point there as far as it being a big boy. Not so much in that people didn't like the fact that they weren't a big boy. It was that it was a company that wasn't accustomed to going through that process. They'd never gone through a casino referendum before, so they didn't know. We're not going to put it entirely in that. That was not the reason they lost, but that certainly could have stood in the way, in that they didn't know how to sell it to the referendum.
Right. And then you also had the competition from Petersburg, which is really right across the river, and they did want a casino. So
well, and they might be getting one soon.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So that must have been difficult. So in Waukegan, now Wisconsin, has a bunch of tribal casinos, and of course there's how many casinos in Illinois. How did that process go, and what kind of analysis did you do that to suggest that a casino in Waukegan would be successful?
That actually wasn't our mandate. For that one, we were hired after Full House had already been selected, and so we were brought in to help the city understand what the socioeconomic impacts, or more, I guess, economic impact and impacts on whether school, fire, and so forth.
Sure.
Basically, negotiating the whole host community agreement with Full House,
Right.
And then also looking at Full House's internal numbers of what they were, suggesting they were going to do for the city, with visitation, taxes, and so forth, versus we did an independent analysis and critiqued their temporary and permanent projections, and help the city to understand, okay, this is, these might be the conservative
Sure.
estimates as to what you might be able to expect. Just don't be careful building a budget. Just like any small city, be careful building a budget around gaming projections, because you're going to get a bunch of tax dollars,
Right.
but don't think you're going to
Sure.
be careful thinking that you're going to get a big windfall. Just sort of like the same thing with Danville. If they thought they were going to get an extra 25%, but instead they got 12,
Yeah.
that could be a big deal if you really plan
Sure.
on the 25. So
Yeah.
we were kind of that was basically what we were hired to do, was
Okay.
give them a sanity check as to what it was, and come up with a host
Kind
community
of
agreement as a result.
temper their expectations, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, great. So you mentioned some of the states that don't have gaming. Let's go through a couple of them. Certainly New York, and I think you're working for a project in New York that you can't
Yes.
mention, but that's a very unusual process. I mean, it's been, now they say
It's
they're
unique.
not going to even think about it until 2025, but we're doing a cover story next month on the 11 official proposals that are out there, and
okay.
some of them looks fantastic. I mean, the
Certainly.
wind project in Manhattan, I mean, it's just unbelievable at Hudson Yards, the Caesars Times Square, and we haven't really seen any renderings for the Sands project out on Long Island, but just knowing the way Las Vegas Sands does things, we know that would be spectacular as well. So, how do you expect that process to unfold?
That is a very good question. Again, in this one, it's left to the politicians at this point.
Right. Which is very dangerous in New
Right.
York.
It seems right now that awards won't be until 2025. There are quite a few ducks, that have to be in a row
Right.
for the awards to be made, and and a lot of it's things that the state needs to clean up on their end,
Sure.
and local governments. I mean, in fact, it was maybe 2 weeks ago that the city of New York finally passed a text amendment to their zoning code to even permit a casino
Right.
in the city.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, without that, no casino could move forward. So there's steps like that have to kind of, be cleaned up. That said, we're hearing whisperings that, that maybe it might be pushed for an award this year.
Yeah.
I don't see that as
Right.
likely.
Yeah.
But you've got some really big gaming companies going after this, and they realize that, I mean, this is the jewel. This is what they want, because New York City is a market like none other.
Sure. So there's supposedly 3 licenses up for bid. The conventional wisdom is that the 2 operating, I guess we call them racinos in New York, will get 2 of the 3, the Resorts World at Aqueduct Racetrack and Empire City at Yonkers. And Empire, of course, owned by MGM. So I was in New York late last year, and I was talking to an aide to one of the major legislators there that proposes gaming amendments. And my question was, why would you give two of the licenses to casinos that are already operating, already producing revenue, when you could give 3 more out that would produce that much more? And he gave me a complicated answer that the revenue that comes out of those racinos gets divided amongst a lot of the towns, and if that revenue goes down, I mean, I still didn't really understand
and there's funds that are dedicated that go to education.
Exactly right.
And so there would be impacts, quite a few impacts on the budget if those facilities weren't given a license, and say their revenue started to decline because they're competing against 3 other
Right.
facilities.
Sure.
But I mean, again, it's a very political
Right.
question
Yes.
of why.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the answer that was given to you. Seems fairly logical. That why prop up 3 communities, but
Right.
destroy two that
Right.
are doing
Exactly
well.
right.
Those communities are probably doing just fine as it is. Manhattan, obviously,
Sure, right.
It doesn't need it so much, but in the meantime, kill Jamaica. Why?
Yeah, right.
So that's not that's a good reason not to do it. As
Yeah.
well as there's all those jobs, and they're already community they've got lots of partnerships
Right.
and all those different things. So that's a good reason not to do it. And it's gonna be hard for those facilities to remain viable.
Right.
When you have the competition, obviously they can start producing revenues earlier than anybody else, since you're not allowed to
Sure.
have temporary casinos.
Right.
That was a big decision that they
Yeah.
made. Is you can't build a temp for a new one. So
Yeah.
that would be a reason to do it. If everyone is able to keep operating, then 5 facilities probably generates more revenues than 3.
That was my point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
But again, I think that the issue is do no harm.
Right.
And that would do harm.
Yeah. Possibly. Yeah.
Well,
But-
and with 5 facilities, the capital investment that any one facility would be able to make would be, certainly reduced. And, and it's my sense that the city of New York really wants to have something that's built that's iconic and, and lives up to the expectation of New York.
Right.
So perhaps, awarding, that many licenses could reduce that capital investment.
Sure. Okay. So let's talk about Georgia. I mean, we ran the Southern Gaming Summit, I guess, it's exactly 5 years ago next month, and we had 2 of the major legislators in Georgia coming down and saying, we're right on the verge of casinos. Well, that's 5 years ago now, and they didn't even pass sports betting in this session of the legislature. So do you think that's really going to be able to get off the ground there at any point?
At some point, yes. This year, next year, I don't. Scott,
I think it's one game at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you said, sports betting could have happened this year. I don't know what really stopped that from happening, but I think that's kind of just one little thing at a time that is going to pass. You're not going to suddenly say next year they're going to have commercial casinos unless they do. But I don't expect it. I think that they're going to take baby steps if they introduce stuff.
Right.
Well, I thought that their neighbor next door in Alabama had a better shot this year, and it seemed to get some traction. And it often happens when a neighboring state gets close to passing something that that next door that accelerates things.
And then we might see North Carolina anytime soon. I mean, that came close also this year. So.
Right, that did come very close.
In Texas, we got Las Vegas Sands pushing that effort there. They went as far to buy the Dallas Mavericks, to have at least a foothold in the state. So, do you think that's going to go anywhere? I mean, still the governor and the Speaker of the House are very much opposed to it.
Actually, the Speaker is very much in favor.
Okay. Maybe it's the President.
The President of the Senate
right,
is
okay.
opposed. So I'll just let you know. So I'm from Texas.
Okay.
And the Speaker of the House was a classmate of mine
Okay.
from high school. But anyway, Texas, they don't have the budget issues that some other states do.
Right.
I mean, and it's a state that is just prospering.
Right.
Their economies are blowing up, the economy in Austin and Dallas and Houston, and so they don't have that need for revenues. And like the phrase, Texas is like a whole nother country.
Yeah.
They see themselves that way. And I don't know if it's going to happen the next legislative session without some major changes within the state or maybe a new direction of the lobbying push.
Okay, great. So outside of the country, you've done some work in Asia as well. With the potential of casinos in Thailand, that seems to be picking up speed very quickly here. The Cambodian casinos, I don't know how that's going to affect them. I wouldn't want to have an interest in Phnom Penh at that point. But what kind of work are you doing in Asia?
Well, pretty much that is just waiting to find out what ultimately the Thai government settles on. Just did a little bit of work in Cambodia, looking at opportunities, but there, like you said, it's the major risk because once something opens in Thailand, where the airports all have, they've got several airports, obviously, 2 big ones in Bangkok. The air access is so much better than anywhere in Cambodia you can get to. So it's a huge deal. Tax rates will be, they're already talking about having a very fair tax rate. Been a few years since I've done something in the Philippines, but that market is going gangbusters. About as strong as any market in the world. So that's it's kept me busy and doing still a little bit of stuff, working on things for Osaka.
Sure. Okay.
But it'd be interesting whether somebody in Japan, like in Hokkaido, decides that they want to give it another shot.
Sure.
I think if it does happen, that's probably where it happens. But with things moving so slowly. I don't think everybody's in a big hurry to jump into Japan right now.
Sure.
As a new entrant.
I did an interview with Walt Power, the CEO of Grand Ho Tram in Vietnam, and they're waiting to get the approval for locals to gamble. Obviously, that would be an important aspect to any Thai casino as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Thailand's probably going to go with the model of Singapore and Japan with having an entry fee and like Vietnam having, or at least the concept of Vietnam of having a wealth requirement, an income requirement to enter.
Right.
I think not like Japan in terms of having a maximum number of days that you can enter. I think that's that's a pretty harsh.
Yeah, that'll be hard to enforce too. And also, when you look at the what's going on in the UAE, I mean that's. I still don't understand that. I mean,
You're not
but
the only
what
one.
are there 5 or 6 different emirates, and they're all able to do it, but only a few are going to do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is the current thought. I mean, obviously, Ras Al Khaimah has already gone, and
Right.
and Wynn is under construction there. But yes, there are murmurings that 2 others are interested. Maybe one of them might go earlier than the other.
Right.
But I mean, also, in the UAE, you have to look at where there's population and where there's ability to do, to build some of these. Where some of the Emirates are, they're just a little more far flung. Harder to get to. They
Right.
don't have that air access. So it's pretty easy to look at a map and figure out which
Which
other
ones,
2.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's a couple that between Ras and Dubai, which are relatively small and are oceanfront, but they're just they're not exactly resort destinations. So it's
Right, yeah.
kind of hard to envision something impressive going into them because there's just no synergy with anything.
Sure.
Yeah. Well,
Absolutely.
that said, impressive is I think what we'll see when projects open in UAE. Obviously, UAE has a history of building just some phenomenal
Sure.
projects.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And I wouldn't expect anything less
Yeah.
from gaming there.
Yeah, that should be really interesting. So let's talk about Europe. The City of Dreams in Cyprus opened up, and I understand they're struggling a little bit. What does that say about integrated resorts in Europe?
It says that their feeder markets, they're relying on some really struggling feeder markets
Yeah.
in the Middle East and Russia.
Right.
So that's basically
Yeah.
what did them in. Is
Yeah.
that's they don't that was basically the 2 major markets.
Right.
And those are 2 markets they can't travel.
Right.
So it doesn't. So to answer your question, it doesn't bode anything. I think it's just bad timing.
Yeah. Okay. So a project like the proposed Hard Rock complex in Barcelona would not face the same problems that you're seeing in Cyprus.
I agree. Yes.
Right.
But
I mean, or the
but
project in
different-
Greece.
Right. Yeah.
Greece, I don't think will have that same issue.
Right. Yeah. It's much
Yeah.
more Western European. But at the same time, you still have. Unlike the U.S., when the economies in Europe, I think in large part aren't doing that great.
Right.
But a slow economy is not the same thing as war.
Yeah.
So I think
Right.
that they should still
War,
do.
war doesn't help anything. Right.
Right.
All right, so let's wrap it up and talk about Convergence Strategies now. You kind of characterize yourselves as a boutique consulting company. Do you envision a point where you're not going to be a boutique, become a full-blown consulting company?
We toy with that, but really we like the model that we have, where we have a pretty broad network of professionals that we work with, and on a project-by-project basis, we bring in other folks to work with, people that we know and respect and trust.
Sure, right.
In terms, we like this model, and it's been very effective for
Yeah,
us. And in this model, we're able to provide our clients with and we're able to provide them with the attention that we think that they deserve,
right.
and a really high level of service. Whereas, if we were to grow and, we added more junior level associates and so forth, then that gets diluted.
Right.
And, what we're able to give our clients is diluted, which is something that hasn't been appealing to us.
I thought I was going to give a totally different answer than Suzanne, and then she wrapped it up with exactly the answer I was going to give. But that's really it. Is that we try to make sure that our clients understand is that the faces that you're looking at, we're 100% of who's doing the job.
Sure, right.
We're not just sharp talking marketers who write a good RFP response. We actually,
Right.
if you need something, you talk to us because we're the ones that are writing the report,
Right.
doing the math, and all that. And then, but on top of that, which Suzanne didn't say, I have no interest in that. I never want to manage anybody again.
Right,
You
yeah.
know, and so we really love what we do.
Sure,
I don't want
right.
to add tasks I don't want to do.
Yeah.
I'm too old for that nonsense. I don't want to do that, so
Yeah.
I'm not going to.
Yeah.
And so I like the way we are right now. We like the people that we bring in with expertise and some of the things, some of the jobs we do, which have some angles that we're not experts in.
Sure,
we know
right.
something about, but we
Yeah.
certainly know people that haven't been in the industry forever that are really good at it.
Yeah.
And so we can bring that in, and we don't feel like, oh, we're bringing in some schmo. We can bring in some guy with, or woman, whatever, with an amazing resume, and the clients are happy. They're not like, oh, these guys
Sure.
sold us
Yeah.
Convergence. We brought in this guy.
Sure.
Well,
So that's
It's
we
nice
like
that
it.
it's nice that we get to work with really smart, hardworking professionals.
Yeah. Right.
That we're all on the same level. It's and everybody knows what's expected of them.
Sure, right, great. Well, I know both of you have done quality work in the past before forming this company, so I think putting the two of you together really makes sense. And just the way that you answered this question, the way you were going to answer it, you think alike. So thanks for coming by. It's really appreciate it. And here at Indian Gaming, I know you got some work to do with some tribes, so I'll let you go. But thanks for joining us, and congratulations on the success you've had so far.
Well, thank
Thanks
you,
so much,
Roger.
Great.
Thanks. This has been fun.
Thanks for joining us on the GGB Podcast, sponsored by Pavilion Payments, the industry's leading cashless payment provider. To learn more about the topics discussed today and all the important issues in gaming, check out Global Gaming Business Magazine. For a free virtual copy of the magazine, subscribe at ggbmagazine.com. To stay current with the weekly news of the gaming industry, subscribe to ggbnews.com. Use the coupon code GGB180 for a free subscription. Don't miss a single episode of the GGB Podcast. Subscribe on Amazon, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts today. So we'll see you next time on the GGB Podcast.